Welcome to Stress, Crisis and Change Management. This is a video that's made for a business studies class, and it will cover a topic. It will be, if you want to follow it in your textbooks, that is in term 2's work, the topic 2. But I'm covering some additional work that you'll not find that's exclusive in your textbook. So please, as I continue, make notes, as this is important work. So as I elaborated earlier, you need to make your notes or your summaries based on these outcomes. So you need to be able to explain the meaning of stress. You need to be able to explain the causes of stress in a business environment. You need to be able to discuss or explain the importance of stress management, recommend ways to manage stress, define the term crisis, give examples, and suggest ways that business can deal with crisis in the workplace. That will be video 1. Next video will continue the second part, and there we'll be working with change. So the content that we'll be continuing or be covering is from meaning of stress to causes, moving over into importance of stress management, ways employees can manage stress, what is the definition of crisis, examples of crisis in the workplace, and ways to deal with crisis in the workplace. So as we start, you all know what stress is. You have probably experienced some sort of stress during the start of this term. It was uncertain. You had no idea, there was no control that you had, that you could exercise over this, so it was out of your control, and it took its strain on you. It was a physical or an emotional or a mental strain. And you could see the effect that it had on you. Some people will feel that they can't concentrate. You feel depressed. You don't have a drive to work. There's low morale. It is harmful regarding to your physical responses or emotional. So you're in this bad space. So you can be touchy, you're on the edge the whole time. So there's a lot of conflict, and it will wear and tear your body down. Okay, so it's like an atom bomb exploding or waiting for that balloon to pop. So we need to understand where it comes from, what it is, and learn to deal with it, cope, and then continue with our lives. If we can understand the problem, then it's much easier to deal with it, handle it, and then to overcome it. So what causes stress? Quickly think. When you are in a situation that causes stress, let's say you get to the exams and now you're starting to stress, am I gonna pass? Am I gonna fail? What do you think is the main cause of stress in this case? Sometimes when I feel stressed in a situation like that, when I studied, or recently when I studied, it's only because of my ill preparation. Okay, or it can be because of fear of the unknown. I've never written this university or college's papers. I don't have an idea what to expect, or there was a glitch in the preparation, or it can be whatever reasons. So that's all factors. So let's look at that. So one of the first one is if you work at a business, right, or if you're in this business studies class and you feel that the target that is set is too high, then it starts causing stress, because you know from the start you won't be able to achieve that. And if you can't achieve it, then what's the use of even trying? But you're trying and you're trying, but you know it's too high and you can't get it. So it's like this arrow going, but you're missing the whole time. So an unrealistic target will cause stress. If your working hours is too long, if you don't balance your life and you just work, but this is now forced to working hours, then it will lead to not just a physical but also emotional drain. And it builds stress because there's no relief, there's no tension relief. If we look at the next one, so that links in with time pressures and deadlines. So you can be working the whole time, but to what will. So some people will have deadlines that's constant. So just after they finish the first deadline, then another one arises and they're running around this way, that way. So they're constantly under time pressure to fulfill all these deadlines. Another one is if you've got inadequately trained workers that work for you. If you know you need to get someone on a project and you know that none of your workers will be able to do it, then that puts strain on you because you've got different things to do as well. So inadequately trained people or subordinates can cause stress. Work demands versus family and personal life. Now that's a very important thing to be able to balance. That's almost like a catch-22. You can't support your family if you don't have a work, but if you're just at work, you'll lose your family. So where's the important part? And it's always important to know that your family will always be there and you work to support them. So family comes first always. But you have to understand that with that responsibility of working, you need to set out time to work. And then when you work, you need to be effective so that when you go home, you can separate your working time and your family time. You can separate your work demands versus family demands versus personal demands. Another factor, technology. Some of you hate technology. Most of you actually love technology. But it might be a frustration if you don't know how it works, if there's something new, if your tablet's not functioning well, you need to study. All are factors that will influence your level of stress. If you start taking work home, now you have homework. That is not taking work home. Okay, you've got specific tasks to complete, and it is given for revision purposes and for studying purposes. But if you don't do your work in the allotted time, homework time is, let's say you set your homework time between 2 and 5, and you can't complete it in that time, and you need to set additional time, and that's where it starts getting interesting, because technically you should be able to complete all your work in the allotted time. It's when you start taking work home that the work balance and the personal balance starts interfering, and suddenly you're at work you feel you don't have to perform because you'll take it home and complete it there, or it's more relaxed. But what you're then doing is you're stealing time from your family, which is also not fair. So in effect, you're just stealing time, being ineffective, and not completing anything actually in the right time that was scheduled for that. And that image actually summarizes what we've been doing in this last few weeks. Trying to teach with a kid running around is quite something. Our work is now from home, and I can't imagine how other business owners have to do it from home. Then we look at travel. Now, when I traveled for my previous company, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But travel can become a stress factor. If you have to travel constantly and do international business flights, there's a point that your adventure and the fun and excitement, it will just reach a maximum point. Then that parameter will be filled, and then every time you have to go, it's just a stress factor because you've still got other work. You still need to complete this task before you do. You have to go and get your visas, and that's time consuming. You have to get this. Your plane ticket was expensive. Who's gonna pay for that? And then suddenly you forget about all the other factors that normally cancelled out these stressing factors. Now it becomes this big issue. And another one is job insecurity. If you're not sure that you're gonna have a job tomorrow, then you won't focus, you won't be able to um, be productive at work. You're constantly gonna be thinking about, will I be fired or retrenched? And if so, what will happen to me? What will happen to my family? And that will lead into stress. I just made a quick GIF to show you what happens at night, and that's luckily not all nights. Okay, so why is stress management in the workplace important? If you don't manage it effectively, it will get out of control and it will cause you health issues. Okay, if I don't handle my stress and if I don't exercise, that's my way of coping with stress. I go run or go cycle, and that elevation of heart rate, or while I'm training it, there's a specific endorphin that is released, and that is one of the factors that will help me to just focus on something else and give me clarity on the topic so that I don't overthink it. But you need to manage stress. So another one is, if it's not managed, you will start missing out work. Okay, so you don't want to go to work, you need to cope. You just can't go, so you'll stay at home. I just can't complete this activity, so I won't do it. And then it becomes not a thing of wanting to miss it, then it becomes a health related problem. The doctor books you off and says, no, you can't go back, you're burnt out. So you should manage it before it gets to that point. If you need to, when you manage stress, it will curb absenteeism a lot more than if the people don't manage stress. I know, for example, other companies have got stress corners, or I know when I visited clients and it was a stressful meeting. After that time, when I got back to the office, I would just go walk around the office block quickly. Just clear my head, take 5 or 10 minutes, clear my head, take a ball with, one of those stress balls, and just get a renewed focus in order to maintain that productivity. Okay, otherwise it will lead to you not wanting to be there anymore, and if you lose your vision, your joy, your passion, stress will most likely take over. So if you suffer from stress, you will show poor judgment in crisis or emergency situations, grievances or complaints that lead to staff turnover can be addressed if stress is well managed. And lastly, conflict and interpersonal problems can be avoided. So if you manage stress, then you'll see there's a lot less conflict. People who are stressed are normally those over the edge people. They're just, it's a ticking time bomb. And that leads to grievances, complaints, that leads to bad judgments when you're in a specific situation. So let's say I'm in a meeting, I need to make a quick call, and the first thing that comes out of my mouth is a swear word instead of a good response. That's just purely out of stress. Then that leaves a sour taste in everyone's mouth that was at the meeting. And it also sets a tone for that people don't want to approach you. So immediately there's a tension between people, and then you will feel the tension. You'll try to talk it down, but in effect you'll just enhance that tension. And when people come to you, they'll be walking on eggshells. That will irritate you, and then it will lead to a trigger. If they say something wrong, one word or whatever, that can cause the conflict. So it's super important to be able to manage your stress levels effectively. Some of the ways to do it, just paste a few pictures. So you need to be able to know when you are stressed. Okay, that's quite simple. When you get married, you will probably your spouse will be able to tell when you're stressed. Your family members will be able to help, friends. But you need to know yourself, and you can see that in the mornings when you wake up. It's either your face shines, or you can see something is dragging you down. Okay, you need to keep a balanced lifestyle. If you feel you're unbalanced, you will know if you're unbalanced. But if you feel something is not right, it always starts with something small. Just do this extra here, and okay, I'll cancel on this, and then it continues on and again and again, and then that pattern starts. Another one is that if you can exercise regularly and keep fit. I'm not sure if that was scientifically proven, but I know that from personal experience, if when you're fit, you just have another capacity to work from. You know that your body can push more and more to the limits, but you also know when to stop, and that's important to know when to draw the line when working. You follow a balanced diet, you feed your body the right things, get enough sleep and relaxation. This is precisely what is needed, but this does not mean you need to go and lie in front of the television and fill your head with all different things, or just focus on technology. That's not what it says. Relaxation means actually to just focus, just clear your head. Not saying meditating, but I'm saying is don't go and focus on all the issues that causes the stress, and then go fill your head with more clutter or more information. It's a time of, let's say, cleansing. Okay, negative self-talk and negativity should be replaced with positivity. You need to be able to apply good time management and set good time or realistic goals. Okay, so that's the first part of stress. When we go on to crisis, now when you have a stress, that describes your being, that describes your emotions. Now a crisis, on the other hand, is differentiated from stress. It can be a specific event. Okay, it can be something unforeseen event, and that event normally leads to major changes. For example, COVID. COVID was seen as a crisis. It was unforeseen. No one planned for it. And what happened? There was major changes. We're now in lockdown. There's suddenly sudden potential disastrous events. As said, it will cause difficulty or trouble or danger. Okay, it's difficult to teach. It's difficult to learn over the internet. You can see it will harm the business or stakeholders of properties, etc. And it can be any situation that threatens people at home. So here we can think of tsunamis, anything that can, a building burning down, a school, a lockdown, anything that's a specific event that can cause harm or difficulty or trouble, danger, that can you describe as a crisis. Alright, so examples, that is, for example, when there's fire or theft, breakdown in machinery, when there's power outages like at Eskom, at more regular intervals, accidents, illnesses, when there's conflict, increase in production cost, that can be a crisis, unforeseen drop in revenue, lawsuits, tight deadlines. All of this you can see is events, and that will lead to stress. Hope you can see the difference. So how do you deal with crisis in the workplace? So in a business, it's about being time sensitive. You need to respond timelessly, quickly, and that's in order to lessen the effect of it. So for example, what the president did was he said when they saw that the spread of COVID, how that happened in other countries, they monitored it, and then they placed South Africa under lockdown. at a specific time. That was a harsh decision, a difficult decision, one that he took, but with positive effects. So he responded appropriately and quickly. Okay, intervened swiftly with urgency, but with no panicking or overreacting. So overreacting in this situation could have been that he said no one leaves for whatever reason. If you have to eat your grass if you're hungry, you can't go to the shops. That would be overreacting. Identify the real nature of the crisis. So this is the important part. You need to define the real nature. What's behind this crisis in order to assess it. So it's the thing behind COVID is not necessarily it's the virus, it's the way that it spreads. So behind that, that's when we were put into self-isolation. Now when you go out, you have to wear your protective, your PPE, or your mask, your glasses, etc. Okay, and then there's an assessment that you have to happen or have to do. So you have to assess that if or when this crisis happens, that you can see what happened to your plans. That if you had a plan in place, or if there you can try and put a plan in place and see if that will solve it. Okay, so for example, we in South Africa, we knew COVID was coming, so they started putting plans in place of trying to stop the virus of entering South Africa, but they couldn't stop everyone entering South Africa. Screenings were not up to scratch. I mean, it was the start, so people are not, you can't screen hundreds of thousands of people at so many different airports every day. And at that time, COVID was not yet as big of a thing, a mindset in our minds, but due to the international travelers, there should have been a bigger awareness, if I can say. Okay, so you need to deal with it directly and timelessly, as we said earlier, and then you need to plan, identify specific actions that you need to do. So that's when lockdown came in. Perform accurate and correct information. That's what happens on a daily basis. They'll say there's so many infections, so many deaths, and so many recoveries. Support guides. So then here's the more humanitarian side. How can we help you in this time? Okay, you can go out. Okay, how about people that don't have food? Okay, let's create a social grant, or let's ask people to donate, or let's do this. Okay, and then contain the situation to minimize. That is the biggest thing. When you're in a crisis, you need to contain it. Okay, you need to catch it in a bottle so that it doesn't spread. The moment it spreads, that's when you sit with a bigger crisis. So the sooner you deal with it, the sooner it's dealt with. The harsher you deal with it in the beginning, the lesser the impact it will have. Okay, and then there's a lot more that we can discuss, but the last one I'm listing here is communication. The better your communication is, the better the response will be. If everyone knows what is decided on and what's discussed, then there will not be questions or people feeling that they're left out in the dark, and they'll normally buy into your plan of action. But it's when you leave people out of communication that they start panicking, and that will not be good in alleviating this. Okay, so if you have questions, you can ask. Please complete your activity on stress and crisis management, page 3 and 4 on the activities, and summarize according to the outcomes.